Hey everybody,
Fatbird Finds here.
I'm Mary Beth.
And I'm Laura.
And I'm Nikki.
How's it going?
Good.
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 We've got a doozy today, guys.
We do.
This is probably the hardest episode so far because it's so involved.
It
right?
is. Yeah, I think this is a suck you in kind of episode, though.
It really is.
It's number 6.
Yes.
And you really become a big fan of the show, I think, in about the 5 and 6 range.
So before we hop in and jump in feet first, let me just introduce ourselves. We are a thrifting, reselling channel. Our mother channel is Fatbird Finds. You are finding us here on Fatbird Finds podcast. So if you want to come over and watch us on YouTube, we show screenshots during the podcast, so you can follow along that way. If you're out there in podcast land, we appreciate you listening to us. And we also have a Fatbird Finds crafting channel if you're into that. Are you ready?
I think you covered it.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. Big time. Okay. So the episode begins in a breakfast making scene. So we have Dawn who is making breakfast. And what's he doing? He's like making orange juice and he's making maybe eggs. I'm not sure what all he's doing.
Toast, I think
It's got
toast.
a little flour to go on the tray.
It's very domestic for Dawn.
so domestic.
Yeah, it's really something. So he's making breakfast, and then it transitions to him. He gets the paper, and he's going upstairs with a tray.
Well,
Don't you... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, first of all, check out the orange juice.
Oh, yeah.
Does anybody remember orange juice like that out of a can and a big glob?
My grandmother used to make grape juice like that
Oh.
in the freezer.
Yeah, I remember orange juice like this.
We used to always buy all the juices, like, for punch for the baby showers and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
In the concentrate like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's a definite throwback
it's
for sure.
Definitely a vintage moment.
Yes.
And I think the other vintage moment about this coming up is the tray itself. Like, how many people do you know today that has like a breakfast in bed tray sitting around?
Yeah, nobody.
Like, nobody.
Nobody.
But everybody did then. I can't tell you how many my grandmother has sold in her lifetime.
Oh.
Look there.
Oh, do we have one
We
up
have one
there?
right
We
there.
sure do. Look.
and it can be yours. Just email us
Yeah.
at fatbirdfinds@gmail.com.
That's right. Send us an email.
That was not quite fancy enough.
Oh.
To really fit the bill, I don't think.
Okay, so then we transition. Dawn's going up the stairs. He pulls the comics out of the paper and he's headed upstairs with his tray. He steps on a toy on the stairs and he falls backwards and, is like knocked out, basically.
It falls down the stairs.
So, Laura, I think you wanted to talk about the toy that he steps on just briefly.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that it's a wheel O. So it's wheel -O.
Okay.
And it was just a really popular, fun little thing, like along with Slinkies and things like that. It's about that same era.
I've seen these wheel O's or whatever, like on movies. But what does it do?
Oh, I've played with one.
Well,
is
it's
it?
just like the wheel just goes back and forth over the hill there.
It takes some skill so it doesn't fall off the open end.
But like a Sacco, you know what a Sacco paddle is?
No.
A little wood paddle with a
ball
little
on it?
rubber ball attached with an elastic string.
Yeah.
And you just sit and pop that.
Yeah.
So it's the same principle that you just sit there and do the wheel back and forth to keep it.
Okay.
I mean, it's just a pass the time kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he steps on one.
He really passes the time with this one.
Yeah.
And so he falls backwards, and we get our very first flashback of the show. So the show, as it progresses, has lots of flashbacks. Dawn when he's younger, Dawn in previous times of his life. But this time we get a flashback to him as a child. So.
Oh, that unfortunate haircut on that
and
child.
This child actor here will be the child representation of Dawn for the entire series.
Yes.
So.
And he's such sort of a dorky looking kid.
Yeah, he's kind of unfortunate, but I guess this is the 30s or something, so what can you do?
So he falls down.
Actually, it's the Depression.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's in the 20s.
Yeah. So he falls down. Automatically, we get like a transition to him younger, and we hear a man call him Dick Whitman. Dick Whitman, whatever. Mm-hmm. So then we transition to a scene where a woman is giving birth or has given birth, and there's a baby. We hear a reference to Uncle Mac. He calls this man Uncle Mac who is talking to him.
Yeah, Uncle Mac's the one that says, he tells him, Dick Whitman, get up. Are you going to sit there and cry? There's somebody over here waiting to meet you or whatever. Yeah.
So then the woman who has given birth to this baby says, God has blessed us with a child. I'm going to name him Adam after the first man. And Uncle Mac says, come meet your brother. And he says, not my brother.
Mm-hmm. He's not my brother, and she's not my mother from the last episode.
Right.
When he was talking to Adam in the diner.
Yeah.
And Adam says the woman has died, and he's
Right.
like, well, it's not my mother.
Right. And so then we hear Uncle Mac say, of course he is. You've got the same daddy. So now we know that Adam is, in fact, his half-brother. And this is the beginnings of Adam there in that scene.
Yeah, and I think it's the first clue to kind of one of the major themes of the major theme of the episode. Well, it's all a biblical theme. Like everything in this episode has biblical ties. And so we start out here with Adam after the first man.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then we transition. Betty comes down. She's like, Dawn, are you okay? And then he confesses. He's like, well, happy Mother's Day. Sorry, I've made this gigantic mess. But, so we find out that it is Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. Then we have a weird transition. I feel like that this is like not smooth. It's not very, I don't know. It's weird. So it goes straight from that to Betty and Dawn and the kids coming in from a night out.
I agree. I think
it's jarring.
The whole thing is jarring. Like, he's never done anything like take her breakfast in bed before, and then they don't say where they're going or where they're coming back from. Mm-hmm. It's just weird.
Yeah, it's out of context, and it almost seems stuck on there for some reason.
And I'll pose my first question to you guys in the comments. You'll see in the screenshot here, when they're coming in from their night out, they're holding a red balloon. So the camera sort of follows them and this red balloon as they go upstairs into the bedroom with the balloon sort of trailing behind. And we've been talking about this for the last few days. What do you think that red balloon means? So when you think red balloon, I feel like everybody automatically goes to Stephen King, right? Mm-hmm. That's like the only big red balloon reference in pop culture.
Well, except the girl with the red balloon. It's like that movie. The
Who's
girl
that?
with the red balloon. There's
that?
a whole movie about that.
I don't know that girl and her red balloon. What does she do?
Maybe you're not old enough to know that.
Maybe not. I don't know about her.
It's not a scary movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just feel like this has ominous vibes. It's a balloon looming overhead. I do want you to keep the color red in your mind. Red is going to be a theme later in this episode, but let me know what you guys think about this red balloon. I don't feel like a red balloon is ever a red balloon. A glass of milk is never a glass of milk, and an apple is never an apple. If you see those things in a scene, I think they mean something else. But that's just me.
What does milk mean in another scene?
Oh, I'm getting to that. I'll get to that in just a moment.
Sorry, I didn't mean to spoil anything.
So
I just didn't know. I thought I might supposed to be knowing the reference there.
Gotcha.
If this red balloon is meant to be a Stephen King red balloon, then it possibly means one of those children is not going to be with us much longer.
Oh.
Well, that's what I would say that would mean.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
But, I mean, just to throw it out there, I didn't think ominous when I first saw it. I mean, I totally defer to your judgment about that, though, because you are the biggest fan of the show.
I am.
But I just kind of thought, I mean, that's probably just that's my naive self. I just kind of thought it meant they'd been out for fun and
I don't know.
And had a family day and
I don't feel good about
lighthearted
it.
day.
Well, they zero in on that red balloon as the last shot. Like they've gone in the room and closed the door and the balloon is still sticking out the door.
Yeah, I would love to know what the director really, really meant for real.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen that anywhere. Have you?
No, I haven't. I've looked for it, but I haven't found it.
Okay.
All right, so then we go into the bedroom scene. Dawn is lying on the bed and he is reading a book. And Betty walks in with a what, Laura?
With a what?
With a what? What's she got there in her hand?
I don't know. What
a
is
glass
that?
of milk.
Oh, it doesn't look like a glass of milk. It looks like a can of something. I was sitting there trying to figure out if that was a Fresca or something.
She's got a glass of milk.
A glass of milk. I got you.
I'm gonna throw it over to you guys to talk a little bit about this book that he's reading. And I'll talk about the glass of milk in just a second.
Well, the book is called The Best of Everything.
Okay.
And so they're talking about how they've just seen the movie. There's a movie version of this book because it's really popular, and Joan Crawford's in it, and they're talking about Joan Crawford's eyebrows, as one does. And Dawn comments that the book is better than he expected because it's racier and it's dirtier. So the book is about, it basically, it just in general, it's about women in the workplace, like at this time, and what they go through, but kind of from a scandalous perspective. It's not meant to be an expose or like hard-hitting literature. It's about all these men who are, flirting with the women in the office and having affairs in the office. And so in the book, though, I think it centers around one young girl who starts working there.
AKA Peggy.
Yes, AKA Peggy. And she's working for an older woman who is jealous of her.
AKA Joan.
Yep. So that's where we're going with this. Here in a little bit, you'll see some more of that. But I think that's what it's alluding to, is that dynamic between Peggy and Joan.
Is Dawn just reading for fun?
Yeah, he is here.
That's bizarre.
I know. I
Yeah.
agree. I think it's bizarre too, but I think it's great. So then they get into like this teasy sort of romantic, back and forth. They're talking.
They're very cute.
They're very cute. What's in the forefront there, Laura?
A glass of milk.
Okay, I'll get to that in a second.
You keep telling me that.
But they're teasing. She's talking about her mom. Was a good-looking person. This is all about age, because she started with Joan Crawford and how she used to be such a beauty and now she's old.
I started to say Betty's all about the looks
yeah.
in this scene.
Yeah, for sure. And then she talks about, I would like to think that my mom would be a good representation of my future beauty or something. And he's like, don't talk about this. This is, such a downer. Don't get into it.
Well, this is another example of her talking about her family, like her dad. Like in the last episode, she was excited to go see her dad. And in these episodes, Dawn has a moment, where he is estranged, thinking about how estranged he is from his family. And then Betty's always right there talking about how happy she is about her family and these wonderful memories, about how beautiful her mother was, how vivacious her mother was right up until the end. And he doesn't always like to hear that. It's not like he's telling her to shut up, but he's always got some kind of problem.
So they get into some other cultures and how they feel about age, and then what she's learned in school. And he teases her, and he's like, well, how did you do in advanced reproduction? And she's like, completed. How did you do? And anyway, they're teasing, and he goes, well, she says something like, well, you failed or you flunked because you got caught cheating. Mm-hmm. And then there's like that awkward pause where he's like, oh. Yeah. And anyway, he initiates, love or whatever. but
oh my God.
But
I thought that maybe that's later that he turns her down. When he's reading the other book.
But she's all about him in this scene. She's like, you're all I think about. I think about it all day.
It's really sad and disturbing. Like she's just.
Is it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's very
so desperate.
Very desperate.
And needy and clingy and insecure.
Yeah. It's very to me. Mm-hmm. But then I want to talk about this milk. So here we have Betty, the housewife. At this point in her life, she is the epitome of pure innocence and naivety. Naivete. She doesn't know that he's a cheater. She's in her own little la land that everything's great. I wait for you here all day. This is my favorite part of the day. This milk is a definite representation of her innocence and her purity at this point in the show.
Yeah, just like Pete drinking that milk and cookies in bed was the same kind of thing. Make him look childlike.
Yep. Agree. Mm-hmm. All right, we're at the office the next day.
Okay.
They have a meeting with, I believe, the Israeli Ministry of Tourism for Israel.
Something like that, yeah.
And the client is trying to get more tourism to Israel. And how are we going to do that? Mm-hmm. So they're talking about the book Exodus.
Because it's a bestseller at the time.
Yeah. It's so I personally am not familiar with this book or the movie, so I'm gonna let one of you guys handle that.
Well, I can do that. It was just a super famous book. It's historical fiction. I read something that said it's mostly not true.
Okay.
It's based on true things that have happened in as far as it's a story about like a Jewish immigration boat, and they name it Exodus, and it is about that's like 1947, I think, that it occurs. Was published in
Post World War II.
Yeah, it's published in 1958, but it's supposed to have occurred around 1947 or so, and they got Paul Newman to play the main character, but anyway, it was just a smashing success. It was a bestseller. It was the best-selling book since Gone with the Wind.
Oh,
at that time.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was Gone with the Wind, and then this book, and it stayed in the number one spot for like 8 months. So you know how much, I mean, the number one book is talked about all the time. So it just kind of indicates to you what is at the forefront of people's minds, and this topic and this issue is something that everybody has an opinion or a story about.
Right.
Yeah.
And what was I going to say? Something. In the meeting, it comes up, they're talking about the obvious ties with the Bible when we're having the conversation about Israel. And one of the clients is like, yeah, let's stay away from that. We don't want that to be our main theme. And I think that we've also not actually mentioned the title of this episode yet, which is Babylon. So for those of you who don't know about Babylon, one of you give me a real quick synopsis of what is Babylon.
Well, I'll take that one.
Okay.
I mean, it's just an ancient civilization, one of the earliest civilizations, and it was an enemy of Israel. I guess they were called Israel at that time. It was an ancient enemy of Israel, and they fought wars, the two countries, and Babylon won, and the Hebrews went into exile in Babylon, in that country, for a while. So I guess it's just interesting to note, or important to note, that the Hebrews weren't just in exile in Egypt like we all think of, but that also other places over the years, and Babylon was one of them. And then Babylon was also known to be this place of excess and paganism, the pagan gods, that an enemy of Israel. So they were the bad guy. They were the antithesis of our Jewish
and we had to discuss amongst ourselves, the Tower of Babel was actually in Babylon, and so there are lots of references in this episode to things like that,
AKA the red balloon ascending.
Yes.
Like the Tower of Babel, they were trying to ascend to heaven.
And here's where we come to my alternative title for the episode, like we like to do.
Okay.
I'm going to call this one A Tale of Two Books.
Oh.
My last episode was A Tale of Two Magazines, and this one is A Tale of Two Books.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Like it. Anything else that we want to talk about before we move on?
How much do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about any of the other references? As in, like,
maybe as we get there, unless...
as we get where?
Well, are they chronological references?
I don't know. I don't know if they're chronological or not. I just think that we should plant it in people's heads, so as we're talking about it, when we're referring back to it, they kind of get the picture.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, as just a couple things, just as in, we think that Sterling Cooper is a representation of the Tower of Babel in this particular episode.
Okay.
And that, if you remember, the opening credits is dawn falling from the top of the building. And so it's like, he is crashing with all the excesses and
a fall from grace.
Yes, a fall from grace kind of moment there. And yeah, and then we've got other ones too, but I just thought we would point that out. It's literally planned in the episode, those kind of references. I don't think that people are just kind of digging around for those. I think they're on purpose.
This whole episode, there's two there's two meanings to Babylon in the whole episode, and there's this idea of kind of how Babylon is treated in the book of Revelation as this place of sin and the whore of Babylon and all of that, this excess and lust and greed. And then there's also the idea of exile, Babylon being a place of exile. So both of those things happen in this story, in this episode. And so it's like they're constantly beating us over the head with these symbols to point us in that direction of Babylon. One other thing, though, about what you said, the Tower of Babel, Sterling Cooper office building, in the story, the biblical story of Babel, the Tower of Babel, God puts an end to all that by confusing their speech and giving everybody different languages. And so another point to that is in that client meeting with the Israeli tourism board, this one older woman speaking, and she's got this heavy accent, and she messes up her words, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, my English isn't so good."
Very good.
Yeah, it's pretty great when you stop to think, because people sat around and came up with those.
Oh my God,
references.
These
and
writers
worked
are brilliant.
them in. Yeah,
brilliant.
It's fantastic.
Okay, so you guys have got some backstory, you've got some notes, so we're going to get into the rest of the episode after this break. All right. Next scene, we are introduced to Roger's wife and daughter, Mona and Margaret.
Mona.
He's trying to be nice. He's trying to initiate conversation with his daughter, and she's just a bitch. She's just awful to him. He says something like, "Oh, I love your hair in a ponytail. It makes you look so young." And she's like, "Yeah, I like your hair like that, Daddy. It makes you look really old." And she's just like, "Come on."
Yeah, it's true.
So they're just chatting. In walks Joan and Dawn. Margaret is immediately taken with Dawn. Look at that look she's giving Dawn. Like, damn, mister, how you doing? Joan then makes Margaret a hair appointment. This is a very, very brief meeting. It's just really an introduction to Roger's family.
Yeah, but it also sets into place,
The next scene.
Yeah, it sets into place Joan's, she's just quick to take responsibility for Margaret. "Oh yeah, I've got that. I got that handled. I can do that." You know?
But it's also important to meet Roger's family. We know now that he has a family, that he has a wife, and he has a daughter. So that's why this next scene is so important. Next scene, we get a view of Roger on the bed. He's talking about his family. You assume he's talking to his wife because he's like, where did we go wrong with Margaret?
Yeah.
What did we do? And then it cuts, and you see none other in the bathroom getting dressed than Joan.
Or Red, as Roger likes to call her.
Red, a.k.a. Red Balloon. So this is intended to be shocking. You don't expect this. First time I saw it, I was like, "Oh, shit. Damn." So, obviously, they're having an affair together. This is a major reveal. And then he's talking to her about his intentions with her. He wants it to be more, even though it really can't be more. He wants to get her an apartment where he can come and go as he pleases. He doesn't like that she has such a busy dance card, so to speak. He kind of wants her all to himself, even though he can't.
He wants to keep her locked up. He wants to own her and possess her. He literally says a room with no windows and no doors, where I can keep you there locked up for a week.
Like a bird.
Yes, like a bird, which is coming later. He doesn't say like a bird, but
I think he does. Oh, no, you're right. She says, "I would get lonely without a roommate."
I would get lonely. He's like, "Well, you can get a bird."
Yeah,
so
you could get a bird.
That comes into play later, and so here's where we also get our first introduction to this idea of the whore of Babylon. Not that we're calling Joan a whore, or that anybody is really being that literal about it, but it's just one of those allusions to Babylon that you can't talk about Babylon without that kind of reference,
right?
So it's a kind of a character in the book of Revelation, and it's all super symbolic, and it probably isn't even really a woman, but it's described as a woman in Revelation, as a woman wearing red.
And doesn't she have like this tremendous title, like Daenerys Stormborn, Mother of Dragons, Khaleesi of the Great whatever?
Yes. She represents the country of Babylon. So her title is something like that, the whole name of the country of Babylon kind of thing. But she's also literally as a symbol in the story in Revelation, she's a woman. And she's wearing red, and she's
lots
also
of jewels, lots of pearls.
I was gonna say pearls because pearls are important here.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. The reason pearls are important is Roger gives her a pearl necklace before she leaves this room after their, time together, which almost literally makes her a prostitute because you could almost say she's taking payment. Although I guess it's a gift, but she is accepting some kind of payment for services.
True.
So they're just kind of hitting us over the head with that. And later on, you'll see that Joan is wearing a startlingly red dress.
We're not there yet.
I know. I'm just telling you that's how what she's intended to represent.
So the Whore of Babylon. This is her actual title, as quoted from Revelation 17:5. Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Good grief.
Yeah. But
yeah.
Not our sweet Joan.
Not Joan.
And I read somewhere that it's on purpose, but it's not to call Joan out like as a sexual deviant of any sort. It's just to call attention to the fact that Roger and Dawn both have a Madonna horror complex. Like they either want, they want both. They want the Joan character, but they want the one at home, and
true,
the mother to their children and all that kind of jazz.
That's true. All right, so then we transition back to the office. Dawn is meeting with some other copywriters and account people, and they're just throwing around ideas about how to promote Israel and what to do. They're looking at World War II pictures, Holocaust pictures, and then they're looking at some magazine covers, and Sal makes the comment, the only thing that this place really has going for it are the people. The people are good looking. And then he makes a terrible comment. I think he says something like, the Jews here, or the Jews there are certainly better looking than the Jews here. Or the Jews there, excuse me. Whatever. But anyway, it's horrible. And it shows a picture of this woman on a magazine cover. Don's face immediately changes. He's looking at this picture, and you can see that his wheels are turning in his head. And basically, he's like, get out of here, everybody. I've got work to do. And he gets on the phone immediately and calls his favorite Jew, Rachel.
Rachel Minkin.
Yes. And in the next scene, we see Rachel, her secretary is like, hey, you've got Don Draper on the phone. And she just like looks at the phone, and she's just like, what do I do here? You can see that she really wants to take the call, but she's very reluctant. Her necklace is also very reminiscent of pearls here, which I believe is important. And then she does reluctantly go ahead and take the call. They make lunch plans for the next day. She is apprehensive, but you can tell that she really does want to see him, even though she's worried about it.
And I think that royal blue purple is also referred to as a color that is worn by the Whore of Babylon sometimes as well.
Well, I was going to say the opposite. I was going to say that kind of, I think it's meant to signify the state of Israel, the color blue.
Interesting.
Their flag.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe so. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. We transition then to Dawn at home. Dawn is reading another book, aka Nikki's title, A Tale of Two Books. Mm-hmm. He is now reading Exodus, and it looks like he's gotten pretty far in the book, unless he's just skimming. And Betty says, did you get a library card? I've never seen you read this much. And he is, I think, pleasantly surprised that the book is better than he thought. I think he says less action than he thought. And then Betty thinks it's a romance. And then They go on to talk about how Betty's first kiss was with a Jewish boy, and he's like, how did that happen? Anyway, she goes ahead and recounts that tale, but she tries to kiss him like you were about to say earlier, and he's like, it's hot in here.
I gotta finish reading this book.
I can't right now. I've got to read this book about the desert.
And she's like, maybe we need to buy an air conditioner.
He's like, we'll see.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, Dawn. She thinks about you all the time. She's desperate to be with you. You know, throw her a bone.
Well, I guess he's just not interested in,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. I don't know how that works psychologically. But, you know, just, he doesn't want her to want him that much, I guess.
All right, next scene. We're back in the office the next day. We are introduced for the first time to Freddie Rumsen, who is a copywriter. I love his voice. It's very, it's very like Twilight Zone to me.
Or Harvey Dangerfield?
I don't know who that is.
Do you know that name?
Rodney
Not
Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah, Rodney
Maybe.
Dangerfield.
I get no respect around here.
Yeah.
This is what he's famous for.
But he sounds like he could be the narrator for the Twilight Zone too.
Yeah.
And later, in like the very last season, he does this monologue where he's pitching copy for a watch, Accutron. It's like my favorite pitch / dialogue from the whole thing. It's so good because of his voice. Anyway, but you can tell he's a piece of work. He's
Oh my God. He's so bad.
Oh, he's bad. But he's pouring himself basically 3/4 vodka and 1/4 orange juice breakfast. They talk about it. They mention his drinking several times in this episode, so you can see that he's a.
It must be bad for these people to say something about it.
Yeah, really. But they're talking about Bel Jolie lipstick, and they put out copy from one of their last ad campaigns. As you can see in the screenshot here, they've got just like tons of colors, like hundreds of colors. And they're saying some of the colors of the lipstick, like passion fruit pink and blah 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 red, and all these ridiculous names. And Freddie is so bad. He's like, I don't speak moron.
Yeah.
Do either of you guys speak moron?
It's
How
so
are we supposed
bad.
to deal with this lipstick
He's
shit?
he's the worst misogynist in the whole show. And that's really saying something.
Well, especially this episode he is.
Yeah.
And then he makes the comment, he's like, well, let's throw it to the chickens. Meaning, let's give this to the girls and see what they can come up with. Maybe they'll stumble upon something. Maybe the broken clock's right twice a day. Maybe they'll find something.
Yeah.
Basically. So, then we transition to the conference room.
And
Go ahead.
no, I'm trying to remember when he said that.
Which?
When he was talking about the girls in the lipstick room. I guess we'll show that first, and then I'll say this.
Okay. So we go to the conference room. Joan brings all the girls into the conference room, locks the door, and they're like, what are we doing in here? And she's like, well, Bel Jolie wants to know what our opinion is about their new lipsticks. And all the girls, just like they're at a Beatles concert, are just like screaming. They're so excited to try on this lipstick.
And here we see Joan in her red dress with her gold, accessories.
Yes. And we see Peggy. They're sort of in the background, like looking like lost as an Easter egg. She's not fitting in with the rest of the women here. All the other women are just like elated, and Peggy's just like, what am I doing here? What is this? What's happening? So then we go one scene further, and we see that not only are the girls in a conference room, but they are in a conference room of a one-way mirror. So all the boys are like in a movie theater watching these girls try on lipstick, and they are just so bad.
I mean, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
One of them says, can I take off my pants? You know?
They're making fun of them. It's just really tacky and awful.
Freddie says at some point when he's describing the scene, he says, it was like watching a dog play the piano.
Well, not yet.
Oh, that's about Peggy.
Yeah, not
in
yet.
particular.
Not yet. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
You're right.
But, I mean, they're just saying awful, awful things about the girls and the way they look. And anyway, they're just boys being boys. I hate that terminology.
They actually went down the row. Like, I forgot which one of them was doing it. They were circling. They're like, this one's ugly. This one's,
got a bad wig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah. So we see Joan sort of doing her thing. She's not in charge. This woman is taking polls and asking questions, but Joan's like hovering, and just making her presence known. You know, she's got to be in the middle of everything that's going on. I love this scene. That woman's like, you go stand over there. You're making these girls not answer the way I want them to or whatever. And she blows smoke in her face. It's so funny.
Yeah, she literally doesn't even move. She like shifts her weight
Yeah.
backwards a little bit.
Joan is such a bitch. But then Joan knows that the mirror is one way and that the boys are all watching. She knows, and she knows Roger's in there. So she does this move where she bends over the table to talk to another girl, and, you know, she flaunts her assets. And everybody in there is just like ogling over her.
Yeah.
And Roger's in there drinking his cream.
Yeah, because
His milk.
He's got an ulcer. We find out later, and I guess at the time they told you to drink milk or cream if you have an ulcer.
Kenny stands up and salutes.
He's like,
Yeah.
I've got to salute that. So anyway, they're just real tacky.
And can I say, because I meant to say when we were at the hotel scene with Roger and Joan right before that, that she's fully a participant in this. I mean, willingly. Like, she wouldn't take Roger away from his wife if she could, if he offered to. Like, she smacks him in the face when he talks about them being together. You know,
Are we sure about that?
yes.
Is that in this episode?
Yes.
That she smacks him?
Yes.
I don't recall that at all.
She does.
Wow. Yeah, I don't remember that at all.
She's putting on her jewelry, you know, and he comes up behind her and he's talking about them being together and I wish we could be together all the time. And she reaches behind her and smacks him in the face and says, hey, no, you know, I'm the reason that your wife is still with you. You know, you need me for your marriage to, you know, work.
Man, I am blanking. I just don't recall that at all.
Well,
Yeah.
I kind of recall that exchange, but not. I didn't take it that way. I didn't interpret it that way. In fact, I've got in my notes the kind of, I was going to say the opposite, that she wishes that she could take him away, and that she feels
Remember,
like that.
she recounts, oh, I've got things to do. I can't be, you know, hanging around you all day. I've got places to be, parties to go to.
I think she's playing it cool. I think that's sarcasm, or like, you know, she's
Oh,
trying
no.
to be
I
unavailable.
don't.
She's trying to seem like she doesn't want him that much, but you know, I think she's being flirtatious.
Yeah, I know the scene you're talking about now,
Yeah.
but I don't remember her smacking him. But you guys let us know what you think in the comments. We're split here, so you let us know. Is she playing it cool or is she being serious? Let's see. So I want to go to my favorite scene of the show here. So all the girls are happy as they can be, trying on their lipstick, you know, having a grand old time. Peggy, however, is not. She is not participating.
As you can see.
She is looking down. She's looking around. She's fidgety. And then it shows this scene where she's looking down this row of women who are trying on lipstick. The very first time I saw this episode and this scene, I was like, oh, she's checking them out. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know where Peggy's story was going to go. But I was like, oh, that's why she's different. She's gay. But that's not the case. That's not the case
Yeah,
here.
like we talked about last time, we've been trying to. You're always trying to figure out why Peggy's different, and
Yeah.
you want to think gay, but it's actually she's so different just because she's ambitious and
Yeah.
she's serious about her career, and she wants to be like a man and be the biggest dog in the room.
So while the other girls are doing what they're doing, she is observing. She is being quiet. She's listening. She's mentally taking notes. She's watching.
And the boys are so rude. They're like, in their little talk, they're like, what's with Mickey Mouse ears over there? Because she's just looking around, not doing anything. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. And then it shows a close-up when you go down the row of those women. The last one in the row, she blots her lips on the tissue and throws it into the wastebasket, which is important later. But I did want to show that screenshot as well. Mm-hmm. So now we're following Dawn to his lunch date with Rachel. We see him from the back.
Of course.
So far in this episode, he's been a good boy. But now then we're seeing him from the back. So I always feel like when we're seeing him from the back, something important is about to happen. So I feel like he's taking a turn here. We've seen the good part of him, and now we're seeing the fall from grace part of him from this point of the episode on. Rachel walks in and she's looking beautiful. What color does she have on, Laura?
Red, of course.
Rachel has on red. In this scene, she's blotting his tie. He's nervous, I think, to see her, and he spills a little something on his tie, and she's like, wow, you're usually so put together. And he proceeds in this conversation to ask her about Jewish people, to ask her about Israel, because basically she's the only Jew that he knows. And plus he wanted an excuse to see her.
Yeah.
But she's basically like, I don't know. Why are you asking me? I'm an American. I live here.
Yeah.
I'm probably the worst Jew that you know. And he asks these ridiculous questions like, why aren't you over there? And she's like, because I live here. I have a store on Fifth Avenue. I'm successful and I'm here. You know, why aren't you there?
And this, I think this scene is where the actual name of the show comes from. The episode comes from Babylon, because she talks about it. And after he asked her all that, and she's like, she said, I want it to be there in case I ever need to be there. But, my life is here.
Yeah. And then they talk about, John says, utopia. Mm-hmm. And I'm probably not going to be able to say this verbatim unless one of you guys have it written down.
I think I do.
But she talks about the Greek had a word for utopia, or two words. Mm-hmm. And I don't recall the words.
No. I don't know the exact Greek words.
Utopos and utopos.
Utopos and utopos. Utopos meaning...
the good place?
The good place. And utopos meaning the place that cannot be. So, again, this mindset of two theories of thought here, we're battling one side and the other throughout the whole episode, in my opinion.
And, of course, it's also obviously meant to represent their relationship. Mm-hmm. And yes. he kind of recognizes that. I think they're talking to each other in code there, that this is the good place and the place that cannot be.
Yes. So, that meeting goes okay, but she cuts it short and she's like, see ya, I'm out of here later. Good luck with your copy or whatever you're doing.
True.
Okay. So we're back in the office. They're cleaning up the conference room. Freddie is like, Peggy, will you hand me that wastebasket, dear? And she comes over and she says my favorite line of the movie, my quote of the movie, and what I would rename the episode. She says, here's your basket of kisses. So Freddie's like, basket of kisses? Where'd you hear that? Who told you to say that?
Freddie is like dumbstruck and awestruck and starstruck.
And
like,
turned on a little, I think.
I guess, maybe.
And he's like, who told you to say that? And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, where'd you come up with that? Oh, I just thought of it, she says. And he's like,
you thought?
He's like, you have thoughts in your pretty little head?
Yeah.
And Joan is like looking over her shoulder at what's going on back there.
She's like, great.
And at first you think, at least my thought is, she's like, doesn't want Peggy to bother him. Like, she doesn't want the men to be disturbed. But I think it's more than that. I think that Peggy is getting attention. Mm-hmm. And it's not sexual attention. Mm-hmm. It's attention because she has done something bright. She's done something good.
It's a different kind of attention, and I think Joan's jealous.
I think so too.
Of this thing which she doesn't feel like she can obtain. She feels limited in being just a sexual object, and that being her strong suit. And the idea that some woman in the office could be a bigger star than she is for a reason that she can't compete with. Right. That's not her strong suit. So she's a little jealous, and she feels, if Peggy starts to, well, I'm jumping ahead.
That's okay.
Because we're about to find out that Peggy impressed Freddie so much that she's going to get... Shh. Okay, you go ahead.
So then Peggy leaves, and Joan makes this really snide remark. She's like, I bet you wish you could pour that in a glass and drink it. Mm-hmm. Meaning, Freddie's like just gooing all over himself over Peggy being able to make a make something up like that. Anyway, she's just tacky. You know, I love to hate Joan. I love her so much, but also she's just a bitch. She really is. But she's one of my favorites, regardless.
Definitely.
All right, so we're back in the office with Dawn, and that's when the boys come in, and Freddie's like, well, I have to tell you about Peggy. And he's like,
Your girl is what he said.
Your girl, Peggy. And anyway, Dawn makes a terrible comment too. He's like, I try to avoid eye contact with her to avoid the earnestness, or something tacky like that. They're also hard on the girls, just especially Peggy. But anyway, Freddie's like, yeah, well, and she really stood out in the Bel Jolie room or whatever. Instead of trying on the lipstick, she saw the benefit of it, and she really stood out. And he's like, Peggy. That Peggy out there. And so that's Freddie bragging on her and really progressing her future to come.
Yeah, the biggest misogynist of them all ends up becoming like her biggest supporter and mentor and friend, actually, in the long run.
It's so terrible because that's when he says that stupid comment.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah,
that's
you
right.
go, Laura. What did he say?
He just said, he's talking to Dawn. He's like, God, it was like watching a dog play the piano or something. It was incredible.
Oh, it's so bad.
Like, God.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's so bad. All right, let's take another quick break and we'll be right back. Okay, so then we go to Rachel's on the phone. She calls her sister. What?
Hang on, you just forgot to say what Peggy says besides the basket of kisses.
I thought we were off of that. What else did she say?
What about that? She doesn't want to be one of 100 colors in a box.
Oh yeah,
that was the other thing that impressed Freddie.
Yeah.
It was the whole thing. It wasn't
all right,
just
let's rewind. Let's take us back to the conference room a few scenes ago.
I just thought that was a really important line of hers.
Yeah, so they're back in the conference room. And along with the basket of kisses comment, Peggy says, I don't think anybody wants to be one of 100 colors in a box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very important as well. And so that's when he's like, oh. Well. All right. So now then Rachel's on the phone with her sister. And, just a sisterly conversation. I think I might have found someone. And the sister's like, oh, really? Well, tell me about him. And so anyway, she's like, yeah, well, Dad would hate him. And she's like, oh, so he's not Jewish. And then she says a great word that I love. She's talking about, is he funny? And then Rachel's like, well, yeah, after a couple. And then the sister says, oh, so he's a shicker. I want to start saying that, but I don't feel like I can.
You're probably not allowed.
Yeah.
Well, we say all kinds of those Yiddish words. We don't even think about it.
Yeah, I guess
Shyster.
So. Shyster. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But I want to start saying a shicker.
All right.
You're kind of a shicker.
What? Oh my God.
No, I think it means like a drunk, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you think I am?
It was a joke.
Okay.
It was just a joke.
Right.
So anyway, basically, Rachel's just smitten, and she doesn't really know what to do about it. The sister, unbeknownst, doesn't realize that he's married with a family, but the sister's just basically like, go for it. What do you have to lose? So
we find out here what fascinates me. You know how I am. I'm like fascinated with age. We find out that Rachel's 28. They look so much older than they are in the show. She looks like she's 38, to me. Just the way she carries herself and her business presence and all that kind of stuff. She just seems more mature than that.
Well,
and here she's just 28 years old. My goodness.
Off topic. This is not on topic at all, but there's a study about how people from the past, quote unquote, look older than they do now. And a lot of it has to do with not their presence or their countenance, but the clothes that they're wearing. Because we associate those clothes with being old-fashioned, so we interpret them as being older than us when maybe they're not. So that's just a side note that I think is really interesting. I watched a whole thing on that on YouTube about how fashion really plays into your perspective of how old someone is. So I just thought that might be interesting to throw in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're back in the office. Peggy is filing. Nobody does that anymore. But in case you don't know, that's when you put papers into a file folder and into a file cabinet.
I have some of those at work, actually.
So Joan walks up behind her and is like, well, Peggy, apparently they want you to write some copy for Bel Jolie. You've said something in there that they like. And she's just like dumbfounded. She's like, really? Well, what do I do? Do I get a raise?
I mean, she hasn't even considered for herself, that this is a goal or an aspiration. She's not been trying to become a copywriter. She doesn't have any ideas like that yet. Yet, because later on in the show, she realizes that about herself, that's a talent she has and something she wants to pursue. But she's like, I didn't even ask for this.
Mm-hmm.
She's not looking to do anything but be a secretary. And now all of a sudden they're like, you've got some skills and we want you to do something else.
Yeah.
But Joan laughs at her when she says, do I get a raise?
And she's like, no.
She's like, no.
More responsibility, same money. But then she does say, well, I guess you might be entitled to some dinner money. But she's like, you have to do this on your own time, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So Peggy's thrilled. She's super excited. And, this is the beginning of something major. So then we transition. Dawn goes over to Midge's. Like I said earlier, I believe the first half of the episode is innocent Dawn there with his wife, and second half Dawn is him with his two mistresses. So he goes over to Midge's and he's expecting, some hanky-panky, but then there's a knock at the door. And then we're introduced to Roy, who is also one of Midge's boyfriends. Dawn is not so happy to see him come in there.
No, because he really makes an entrance into the apartment this time. Like, he's there for a purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, this new character Roy, he's like, hey, we're going down to support Ian, who's a friend, at the Gaslight, which is like a little poetry / music dive in the city. We're gonna go pass the basket for him. Do you want to come? And Dawn's like, I'm just gonna stay here. And Midge is like, if you go, I'll wear a skirt and nothing else. And he's like, okay. So reluctantly, they all go to this dive to listen to some shitty music. Then we have a transition to Joan and Roger meeting in the hotel. And they're meeting for their rendezvous, and Joan hears some chirping and looks over in the corner, and lo and behold, Roger has gotten her a bird, like he said in the first scene, because she said that she would get lonely in an apartment. Well, you should get a bird. So he's gotten her a bird, and then we see this great framed scene where Joan is looking in at this bird, and not only is the bird caged, but Joan is too. So Joan likes to think that she's got this free life and she comes and goes as she wants to, but she's trapped. She's trapped, and that's become apparent also with Peggy in the previous scenes. So Peggy, like we said earlier, has gotten this attention that is not sexual attention, it's professional attention, and Joan is not capable of that, or at least she doesn't believe that she is. And Joan is trapped in her office.
She'll never go anywhere else.
She can't go further with Roger, so she's trapped in that way. She can't really go further at work. She's trapped that way. She's also trapped in her body. So she's older than she lets on, that we find out in upcoming episodes, and she's older than a lot of the girls who work there. So not only is she trapped in this relationship sort of with Roger, but I think it's also a fear with her that Roger might find somebody younger.
Yeah, he does make a comment. She makes a comment, like she's playing with him. She's, just kind of teasing him. She's like, they'll be coming out with the newer models next year, the 61s. I hear their fins are bigger.
Yep. So she is feeling trapped in all sorts of ways. And I think that scene with her looking into that cage, I just think that's beautifully represented there.
Yes.
But she definitely, she definitely fights it. She doesn't want to believe that that's her situation, and she doesn't want anybody else to either.
Oh, for sure.
Because in the first rendezvous scene, she says a really good quote. She says, "I like hotels. You leave with what you came in with." Mm-hmm. When she's saying that she doesn't want him to buy her an apartment and put her away somewhere in an apartment, you know. She's like, "I like hotels."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, she doesn't want anybody to think that, but definitely that's the symbolism there.
Exactly. All right, so almost done. Last scenes of the episode. We are at the Gaslight, which is the bar/dive that they go to.
Don't you think it's funny that it's named that?
Yeah,
yeah,
I like it. They're listening to some music. Roy there sits in the middle, and Dawn's like, "Hey, switch seats with me," and he's like, "No way."
And he calls him Dad.
Yeah.
That was kind of a popular hippie kind of thing to do, but still he meant it as a slur.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah, they're poking at each other this entire time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're just, like, rattling back and forth these one-line insults.
Dawn's like, "There's nowhere to put my coat." And so, he's just so out of place there. So out of place.
Yes.
And like you guys said, they're poking back and forth. Dawn's like, "So, Roy, if you had a job, what would it be?" Just really shitty stuff. And Roy's poking back at him about him being an ad man and perpetuating the lie.
And you hucksters up in your tower.
Up in your tower,
with the teaching us the religion of consumerism.
AKA ascending, AKA the red balloon.
And the Tower of Babel.
Yes. So,
and then he says, this is my favorite quote of the show.
Okay.
Because Dawn is I love Dawn, and he's just such a smart ass. When Roy is telling him all that, he goes, "How do you even sleep at night, knowing that you do all this crap?" And Dawn just coolly says, "On a bed made of money."
On a bed of money. God, I love that too. It's so great. And he's picking something out of his lip when he said, he's like, "On a bed made of money."
It's just tobacco off of his
yeah,
cigarette.
Yeah. Oh, he's such an asshole. So then we get into, in my opinion, one of the most heart-wrenching / poignant moments of the episode. This is Ian, who they've gone to see, and he's playing a little mandolin, I think. I don't know what instrument it is. It's a little ukulele / mandolin, I think. And he's singing this song called Babylon. The lyrics are, "By the waters of Babylon, we lay down and wept for thee, Zion. We remember thee, Zion." So Babylon, of course, we've been talking about this whole time. Zion is sort of, the antithesis to Babylon. It's the total opposite. So it's
Israel.
Paradise or utopia. Mm-hmm. It's the place that you want to be. Mm-hmm. And so we've got this equation here, this balance, this up and down here from Babylon to Zion in this scene.
And this is the other half of the Babylon theme of the episode. This is the exile part of that theme coming out. And these lyrics are from Psalm 137. And it's talking about the time that the Hebrews were in exile in Babylon and yearning to get back to Zion. Mm-hmm. And so it's no accident that this song happens in this scene with Dawn, because Dawn is in exile in this scene. He doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
He's an outsider with these beatniks and these young people. And, we talked about earlier, he's an outsider because he doesn't have a family, or he was an outsider in his own family. That's no brother of mine, and she's not my mother. And
mm-hmm.
He has this secret identity, and so he's always on the outside looking in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they make him, I just was going to say, they make him really look like it. A lot of times when he's with Midge, he's got, shirt unbuttoned or half clothed or whatever in bed, so you can't really tell the big difference. But he's got his full suit and tie on,
right,
looking for a place to put his coat. Really big comparison there.
So while Ian is singing this song, it's beautifully, it's like heartbreaking, this song. Mm-hmm. If you've never heard it, look it up. While he's singing, you see flashes. Okay. So I want to talk about these flashes that we see. So the first flash is Rachel in her store ties in the background. You know, she was just cleaning his tie earlier. And I want to talk about how you could look at these scenes in one of two ways. These characters are either in Babylon or they're in Zion. Which is it? So she's trapped. She's feeling isolated in this store, but also this store is her paradise. It's her playground. I think she has said in other episodes, you know, this is everything that her family has worked for. So is this her captivity or is this her happy place? We're not sure. She looks really sad here, but you know, which is it? It's this balance. So then we have a scene going to Betty and Sally. She's putting lipstick on Sally. You know, earlier we have Peggy saying nobody wants to be one of 100 colors in a box, but Betty probably does. And Betty's all about it. Betty would have been thrilled to have been in that room trying on lipstick.
As long as she was the prettiest color in the box.
Right.
And here she is. She's got what's her name? Sally, dressed up in a white dress like a bride. Like they're playing dress up as a bride, which is, you know, Betty's idea of utopia, of Zion.
But is it though?
Yeah.
But is it though? Because in later episodes we find out Betty may not be the best mother. So is this her Babylon or is this her Zion? We're not exactly sure. We get a close-up of Don listening to this song, and I believe all these thoughts are running through his head too, because it looks like he could cry at any moment. He's obviously touched either by this song or he's contemplating everything in his life that is capturing him, that he can't escape from. And then the last scene that we cut to during this song is Roger and Joan.
That's a gorgeous shot right there.
After their love fest. She's putting her earrings on. He's got his back to her. This also evokes a Edward Hopper painting. Laura, you pointed that out to me.
It's beautiful. I just happened to see that in a blog that I don't have that much artistic insight, but it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
I think that this is called A Room in New York or a New York Room or something by Edward Hopper. It's not a verbatim picture. I'm going to go back. So it's not perfect, but it's close.
It's very close. It's not accidental.
And I also want to point out, I don't have a screenshot of it, but Edward Hopper's Nighthawks picture, the guy in Nighthawks looks almost just like Roger, which I think is really interesting. But I did want to point out the Edward Hopper painting here. Then we go to the very last shot of the show, which I think is gorgeous. It in of itself looks like a painting. Little side note here, this hotel was the hotel in Ghostbusters, but that's neither here nor there.
This is also a copy off of a Hopper painting.
You know, I looked that up and it's close. It's close, but it's not as close as the other one, in my opinion. It's very close though, but I want to point out the framing here. She is visually placed lower than him. She is in a lower standing than him in almost every aspect, you know, at work, socially, and she has nowhere to go. You know, he's standing there looking up, and she's standing there sort of looking at him, but it's like she's chasing, I don't know. Anyway, she's chasing him, but nobody's chasing her. And I just think that visual balance right there is...
Dang bird.
Yeah.
She's trying to get a taxi with a bird.
I just think that visually says a lot, in my opinion. Whatever you guys think.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's supposed to... The whole thing is supposed to evoke that feeling of they're lonely, but they're together, all that trapped kind of feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
And
the music really helps.
Oh my
gosh. Man, you really got to hear that.
It's so haunting.
In the background.
It really is. Guys, that was a lot. Hopefully we did that episode justice. There was a lot to unpack. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. If you're out there listening in podcast land, come over to YouTube. Check out the screenshots as we talk about them. We would love for you to subscribe to this channel. We'd love for you to subscribe to our mother channel, Fatbird Finds. And be sure to go over and find our crafting channel, Fatbird Finds Crafting. Any other thoughts or anything before we leave this one?
I don't know. We keep saying the episodes are going to be hard to beat, but I'm not sure about it.
This one's a good one. This one I think is the best one so far as things to unpack and representation and symbolism.
Yeah, it was really
definitely
great.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like this video, comment below, subscribe, all the good stuff. And as always, yes?
I just was going to tell them to comment the title that they would call the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would your favorite quote be, or what would you call the episode? Mine's Basket of Kisses. So, all right, guys. As always, make sure you stay tuned to see what Fatbird finds next, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.